Park Jin stood on the observation deck, watching death fall from the sky. The alien ships looked nothing like the sleek vessels humans built. These Vorthak bioships were alive, their hulls breathing and pulsing like giant hearts. Dark veins ran across their surfaces, glowing with sickly green light. When they fired their weapons, the ships actually screamed. 3 months ago, New Busan had been a thriving mining colony. Families lived in comfortable domes, scattered across the red plains of Kepler 442b. Children played in the recreation centers, while their parents extracted rare minerals from the planet's crust. It was a good life, far from Earth, but full of hope for the future. Now those same domes lay in ruins. The Vorthak had appeared without warning, dropping out of hyperspace like demons from hell. Their first attack destroyed the orbital defense stations in minutes. The colonists barely had time to reach the underground shelters before the real bombardment began. Park Jin touched the communication device on his wrist. Only 800 people remained from the original 1,500 colonists. The lucky ones had died quickly in the first attacks. The others had been taken by the aliens for purposes too horrible to imagine. Deep beneath the surface, Dr. Kim Hana worked frantically in her laboratory. The walls shook constantly from the bombardment above, causing her equipment to rattle and spark. She had been studying the alien attack patterns for weeks, trying to find some weakness they could exploit. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The Vorthak weren't random destroyers. They were incredibly intelligent, but in a way that chilled her to the bone. These creatures shared a single mind spread across their entire species. Every thought, every memory, every experience was shared instantly among billions of beings. But their collective intelligence had limits. That's why they hunted other species. The Vorthak would capture intelligent beings and extract their brain tissue, adding new ways of thinking to their hive mind. Humans were particularly valuable because of how differently they thought compared to other alien species. Kim Hana realized with growing horror that the Vorthak weren't trying to kill all the colonists. They were farming them, taking some, leaving others to breed, creating a steady supply of human brains to harvest. The thought made her sick. In the communication center, 17-year-old Lee Minho worked alone among banks of humming equipment. His job was simple but crucial: keep broadcasting their distress signal into space, hoping someone would hear and come to help. The work was dangerous because the communication center sat close to the surface, making him an easy target for alien patrols. Minho had volunteered for the job when 3 previous operators had been killed. His parents begged him not to do it, but someone had to try. The colony's only hope was that Earth or one of the other human worlds would send help. But Minho knew the truth, even if he couldn't say it aloud. New Busan was too far from the main shipping routes. No military patrols came this way. The nearest human fleet was months away, and by then there would be nothing left to save. Still, he kept working. Every few hours, he would send the same message into the void. This is New Busan Colony on Kepler 442b. We are under attack by hostile aliens. Please send help. Repeat, we need immediate assistance. The responses never came. Space remained silent except for the static of distant stars. Above ground, the Vorthak had begun landing their ground troops. These weren't like the ships. They were walking nightmares that had once been living creatures from a dozen different worlds. The aliens took whatever they captured and changed it, turning peaceful beings into weapons of war. Some had been human once. Minho tried not to think about what happened to the colonists who had been taken in the early raids. The lucky ones died quickly. The others became something else entirely, their minds wiped clean and replaced with the collective will of the Vorthak Hive Park. Jin gathered the remaining colony leaders in the main shelter. They had perhaps days before the aliens broke through their final defenses. The nuclear reactor that powered the colony could be turned into a weapon, but using it would kill everyone inside the shelters too. "We can't let them take us alive," Park Jin said quietly. "If they add our minds to theirs, they'll learn everything about human space. Colony locations, defense patterns, everything." The others nodded grimly. They all understood what needed to be done. Better to die free than live as slaves to an alien hive mind. But first, they would fight to the very end, hoping against hope that somehow, somewhere, help would come. Admiral Choi Suna was reviewing fleet reports when the distress signal came through. It was weak, broken up by static and interference from distant stars. Most of the message was garbled, but she could make out enough. Human colony under attack, requesting immediate assistance. Situation desperate. The bridge crew barely looked up from their stations. Distress calls from the frontier happened all the time. Space was dangerous, and people who chose to live on the edge of human territory knew the risks they were taking. The core worlds had their own problems to worry about, but Suna listened to the message 3 more times. Something in the voice made her pause. It sounded young, maybe just a teenager, trying to stay calm while death surrounded him. She had been that age once, living on a mining station that barely had enough air recyclers to keep everyone breathing. "Sir, it's probably another pirate raid," said Lieutenant Kim Ji-woo from the communications station. "The outer colonies deal with this stuff constantly. Not really our problem." Suna pulled up the star charts on her command screen. New Busan colony sat way out on the frontier, months away from the nearest military base. If they were really under attack, no help would reach them in time. The colonists were completely on their own. She thought about her own childhood on the outer rim. Her family had worked the asteroid mines near Proxima Station, barely scraping together enough credits to survive. When pirates hit their station, Earth Command had been too busy with more important matters to help. 40 people died, while the military decided whether it was worth the fuel costs to investigate. "Ma'am, we have our patrol orders," Captain Yoon Dae-ho reminded her quietly. He was a good officer, steady and reliable, but he followed rules like they were carved in stone. "Command expects us to maintain our current route. The shipping lanes need protection." The shipping lanes, always the shipping lanes. Corporate cargo was more important than human lives, at least according to the bureaucrats back on Earth. They sat in comfortable offices making decisions about people they would never meet, places they would never see. Suna had worked her way up from enlisted crew to admiral through 20 years of service. She had seen what happened when the military abandoned frontier settlements. Pirates got bolder. Alien raiders learned that humans wouldn't fight for their own people. The frontier became a hunting ground. "Sir, the signal is breaking up." "Lieutenant," Kim reported. "We're losing contact." Suna made her decision. "Sound general quarters. All ships prepare for emergency jump." Captain Yoon stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Admiral, what are you doing? We don't have authorization to leave our patrol zone." "Authorization?" Suna turned to face him. "Captain, there are human beings dying out there. Children, families. People who trusted Earth to protect them when they needed help. But our orders are to protect human interests." Suna cut him off. "What's more important than human lives?" She activated the fleet-wide communication system. 12. Ships floated in formation around the Iron Thunder, the most advanced warships humanity had ever built. The Fire Dragon alone carried enough firepower to level a small moon. "All vessels, this is Admiral Choi. We've received a distress call from New Busan Colony. They're under attack by unknown hostiles and need immediate assistance." Captain Yoon checked his tablet, frowning. "Ma'am, New Busan isn't even on our protection list. It's classified as an independent settlement." "They're still human," Suna replied firmly. She opened the comm channel again. "All ships, plot course for Kepler 442b, maximum burn. We're going to push the engines past red line specifications." The response came back immediately from her ship captains. Most sounded confused. Captain Park from the destroyer Swift Arrow asked, "Admiral, are we authorized for this mission?" "I'm authorizing it," Suna said. "Sometimes you have to choose between following orders and doing what's right." The fleet's chief engineer, Commander Lee Soo-min, appeared on the main screen. "Ma'am, if we push the drives that hard, we risk serious damage. Some ships might not make it." Suna nodded. "Understood. All vessels. This is a volunteer mission. Any captain who wants to return to patrol may do so without penalty." She waited. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. On the tactical display, she could see her 12 ships holding formation, waiting for her next order. One by one, the responses came back. Not a single captain chose to leave. Captain Yoon shook his head. "Admiral, Earth Command is going to have our heads for this. We're abandoning our assigned patrol to chase after some frontier settlement. that might already be dead. Maybe, Suna admitted, but I'd rather face a court-martial than live knowing we let our people die because we were too afraid to break a few rules. She turned back to the navigation station. All ships engage hyperdrive on my mark. We're going to show those colonists that Earth doesn't abandon its children. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, racing toward a battle that would decide whether humanity stood together or left its people to die alone in the dark. The ground shook as something massive landed outside the colony's main entrance. Park Jin watched through the security cameras as the Vorthak drop pods split open like giant eggs. What crawled out made his stomach turn. These weren't the sleek bioships from orbit. The ground troops looked like someone had taken different, alien species and stitched them together into walking nightmares. Some had multiple arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Others moved on tentacles that left acid trails on the ground. The worst ones had been human once, their faces still recognizable under layers of alien machinery. "They're using our own people against us," whispered Dr. Kim Hana, standing beside him in the command center. She pointed to one of the creatures on the screen. "That one there, see the uniform fragments? That's what's left of Security Chief Bae Hyunjin." Park Jin closed his eyes for a moment. Hyunjin had been taken 2 weeks ago during a surface raid. The man had 3 children hiding in the shelters below. Now he was something else entirely, his mind wiped clean and replaced with the alien hive's collective will. The creatures began, setting up strange devices around the colony's entrance. The equipment looked organic, pulsing with the same sickly light as the bioships. Within minutes they had created some kind of energy field that started eating through the reinforced blast doors. "How long until they break through?" Park Jin asked. Engineer Yang Woo-jin checked his instruments. "At this rate, maybe 6 hours. The doors were built to stop human weapons, not whatever that thing is." Park Jin gathered the remaining colony leaders in the main briefing room. 23 people represented all that was left of New Busan's government. The faces around the table were hollow with exhaustion and fear. "We all know what happens if they take us alive," Park Jin began. "The Vorthak don't just kill. They harvest our minds, add our knowledge to their collective intelligence. Everything we know about human space, our defenses, our weaknesses, they'll have it all." Council member Cho Min-ji spoke up. "There has to be another way. We could try to negotiate, or maybe—" "There's no negotiating with them," Dr. Kim interrupted. "I've studied their behavior patterns. The Vorthak don't communicate with other species. We're just resources to be harvested." Park Jin activated the holographic display, showing the colony's power systems. "We have one option left. The fusion reactor can be overloaded to create an explosion large enough to destroy the entire complex. It would take out most of their ground forces, too." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what he was suggesting. There were still 400 colonists in the shelters below, including dozens of children. The explosion would kill them all. "We can't murder our own people," Cho Min-ji protested. "We're not murdering them," Park Jin replied quietly. "We're saving them from something worse than death." Meanwhile, 17-year-old Lee Min-ho crawled through the maintenance tunnels toward the surface communication array. The tunnels were partially collapsed from the bombardment, forcing him to squeeze through gaps barely wide enough for his body. His hands were cut and bleeding, but he kept moving. The communication center had been hit 3 times, but the main transmitter was still functional. If he could reach it, he might be able to send one final message to Earth. Someone needed to know what happened here. Someone needed to warn the other colonies about what was coming. Min-ho reached the surface level and peered through a crack in the wall. Vorthak creatures patrolled the area, their movements coordinated like a single organism. He waited until they passed, then sprinted across the open ground to the transmitter building. Inside, the equipment sparked and smoked from battle damage, but it still worked. Min-ho's fingers flew over the controls, boosting the signal strength to maximum. This would be loud enough for any ship within 50 light-years to detect. "This is New Busan Colony, on Kepler 442b, he spoke into the microphone. "We are under attack by alien forces called the Vorthak. They harvest human minds to enhance their intelligence. If anyone receives this message, warn Earth. Tell them what's coming. Tell them we—" The building exploded around him as a bioship's plasma beam struck the transmitter. Minho was thrown against the wall, his vision going dark. The last thing he saw was Vorthak ground troops pouring through the smoking ruins. Back in the command bunker, Park Jin watched the communication feed go dead. The boy was gone, along with their last hope of warning Earth about the threat heading toward human space. He looked at the detonation switch in his hand. A simple red button that would end everything. The reactor overload would create a fusion explosion visible from orbit, bright enough to turn night into day across half the planet. All remaining personnel, this is Colony Leader Park Jin, he announced over the internal comm system. Gather your families in the central shelter. We have perhaps 2 hours before final breach. I want everyone to know that you've shown incredible courage. Earth will remember what happened here. His finger hovered over the button. Through the security cameras, he could see the Vorthak creatures had almost broken through the outer doors. Soon they would pour into the tunnels like a plague, hunting down every last human in the complex. Park Jin took a deep breath and prepared to make the hardest decision of his life. The Vorthak bioships sensed something wrong before the humans. Feven appeared. Their organic hulls began to twitch and writhe, responding to some deep instinct that warned of approaching danger. The alien creatures had conquered dozens of worlds, but something about this moment felt different. Then space itself seemed to rip apart. The hyperspace jump created a massive tear in reality, crackling with energy that made the nearby planets' magnetic fields go crazy. One by one, 12 human warships emerged from the dimensional rift, their hulls glowing white-hot from the dangerous overcharged journey. Admiral Choi Suna stood on the bridge of the Iron Thunder, watching as her fleet took formation around the flagship. The ship was nearly a kilometer long, covered in weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Gun turrets the size of buildings rotated toward the alien vessels, while missile bays loaded with experimental warheads prepared to fire. Behind the Iron Thunder came the Fire Dragon, humanity's newest and most dangerous weapon. The experimental dreadnought was built around a single massive cannon that could create artificial black holes. The weapon had only been fired once during testing, and it had accidentally destroyed an entire asteroid field. Admiral, we're detecting over 300 Vorthak vessels, reported Lieutenant Kim Ji-woo from the sensor station. They're moving to surround us. Suna nodded calmly. She had expected to be outnumbered. The Vorthak always attacked in swarms, using their numbers to overwhelm any opposition. But Earth ships weren't built for fair fights. Open all communication channels, she ordered. I want every alien ship in this system to hear this. The bridge crew worked quickly to boost their signal. Within seconds, Admiral Choi's voice was broadcasting across the entire Kepler 442b system, reaching every Vorthak bioship and any surviving human equipment on the planet below. This is Admiral Choi Suna of the Terran Defense Force. You are in violation of human territorial space. You have exactly 30 seconds to withdraw all forces and leave this system permanently. This is your only warning. The response came immediately. The Vorthak bioships began moving toward the human fleet like a living wave of death. Their organic hulls pulsed faster, preparing to unleash the same weapons that had destroyed the colony's defenses. Time's up, Suna said quietly. Then, louder. All ships weapons free. Show them what happens when you threaten Earth's children. The battle began with a light show that could be seen from the planet's surface. The Iron Thunder's main guns fired simultaneously, sending beams of pure energy across space. Each shot carried enough power to level a city. But the Vorthak bioships were tough. Their living hulls absorbed the first attacks, their adaptive defenses already learning to counter human plasma weapons. But Admiral Choi had expected this. She had studied every report about Vorthak combat tactics, learning from the mistakes of other species who had faced them. The aliens' greatest strength was also their weakness. They adapted too quickly, changing their defenses so fast that they sometimes made themselves vulnerable to different types of attacks. Switch to kinetic rounds, she ordered. Let's see how they handle old-fashioned bullets. The human ships fired again, this time using magnetic railguns that launched solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. The Vorthak bioships, still adapted to defend against energy weapons, took massive damage as the kinetic rounds punched through their hulls. Within minutes, the aliens had adapted again, their bio-armor hardening against physical impacts. But the humans were ready for this. 2. Fire Dragon? You're clear to engage, Admiral Choi announced. Captain Park Namjoon, commanding the experimental dreadnought, had been waiting for this moment. Singularity cannon charging, he reported. All ships maintain safe distance. The Fire Dragon's main weapon began to glow with an eerie blue light. Deep inside the ship, massive magnetic fields contained a miniature black hole, compressing matter to impossible densities. When fired, the weapon would create a gravitational anomaly that could tear apart anything in its path. The Vorthak seemed to sense the danger. Their bioships began retreating, but it was already too late. Firing, Captain Park announced. The singularity cannon discharged with a flash of light that briefly outshone the system's sun. The artificial black hole shot across space at nearly the speed of light, its gravitational field warping reality around it. When it struck the center of the Vorthak formation, the results were catastrophic. Bioships simply ceased to exist, pulled apart at the molecular level by forces beyond their ability to adapt to. The lucky ones died instantly. Others were stretched into long streams of organic matter before being consumed by the miniature black hole. But the humans weren't finished. While the Vorthak reeled from the singularity weapon, the rest of the fleet attacked with coordinated precision that seemed almost impossible. Each ship knew exactly where the others would be, firing in perfect timing to create overlapping fields of destruction. The Vorthak had never faced anything like this. Most species they conquered fought alone, each ship trying to survive on its own. But the human fleet moved like a single organism, sharing information instantly and adapting their tactics faster than even the bioships could counter. In less than an hour, the battle was over. Of the 300 Vorthak vessels that had attacked the human fleet, fewer than 50 survived. They fled into deep space, broadcasting warnings to their entire species about the dangerous new enemy they had discovered. Admiral Choi watched them go, then turned her attention to the planet below. This is Admiral Choi to New Busan Colony. The cavalry has arrived. Prepare for immediate rescue operations. Captain Yoon Dae-ho knew he was about to die, and he was perfectly fine with that. His destroyer Swift Arrow had taken heavy damage in the first exchange with the Vorthak bioships. Hull breaches vented atmosphere into space, and half his weapon systems were offline. But his engines still worked, and that was all he needed for what came next. "Admiral, I'm going in," he announced over the fleet communication channel. "My ship's hurt bad, but I can still fly her." Admiral Choi's voice crackled back through the static. "Negative, Captain, return to formation. Ma'am, with respect, those bioships are clustered too tight for the Fire Dragon to get a clean shot. Someone needs to break up their formation." Yoon looked around his damaged bridge at his crew. Young faces, most of them barely out of the academy. "All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Yong Hanul, shook her head. "Sir, we're staying with you." "That's an order, Lieutenant." "Then court-martial us later," she replied, her hands steady on the weapon controls. "We didn't come this far to run away now." Yoon felt a surge of pride in his crew. These were Earth's finest, ready to die for people they'd never met. He opened the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to make a run that'll be remembered for 1,000 years. Hold on tight." The Swift Arrow turned toward the heart of the Vorthak formation and accelerated to ramming speed. The bioship saw them coming and opened fire with everything they had. Plasma beams and organic missiles tore chunks out of the destroyer's hull, but Yoon kept flying straight into the storm. "Fire everything we've got," he ordered. "Make them notice us." The Swift Arrow's remaining weapons blazed to life, targeting the largest bioships in the formation. The destroyer wasn't trying to win the fight. It was trying to create chaos, forcing the aliens to break their defensive pattern. It worked. The Vorthak ships scattered to avoid the kamikaze attack, their perfect formation dissolving into confused clusters. In that moment of disorder, Captain Park Namjoon aboard the Fire Dragon had the opening he needed. "Singularity cannon full charge," Park announced. "All ships, clear the firing zone." The artificial black hole punched through space where the Vorthak formation had been seconds before. Without their coordinated defenses, the bioships were sitting ducks, The miniature singularity tore through them like a blade through tissue paper, consuming everything in its path. Captain Yoon watched the destruction through his cracked view screen as the swift arrow tumbled through space, its engines finally giving out. "Beautiful," he whispered, just before the emergency bulkheads sealed, and the bridge went dark. The battle turned into a massacre after that. The surviving Vorthak ships, their formation broken and their numbers decimated, tried to flee in all directions. But Admiral Choi's fleet was ready for them. Human ships appeared wherever the aliens ran, cutting off escape routes and finishing off the survivors. Within an hour it was over. The few bioships that managed to escape jumped to hyperspace, broadcasting desperate warnings to their species. The message was simple: stay away from human space. These creatures fight like demons, and their weapons can destroy anything on T. The planet's surface. Park Jin heard Admiral Choi's voice through the emergency speakers and couldn't believe it was real. 3 months of siege, 3 months of watching his people die, and now salvation had literally fallen from the sky. New Busan Colony, this is Admiral Choi Sooner of the Terran Defense Force. The cavalry has arrived. Prepare for immediate evacuation and medical assistance. Park Jin dropped the detonation switch he'd been holding and fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Around him in the command bunker, the surviving colonists were cheering and crying and hugging each other. They were going to live. Their children were going to live. The rescue operation took 3 days. Human Marines secured the surface while medical teams treated the wounded colonists. Transport ships ferried survivors to the fleet's hospital vessels, where Earth's best doctors worked around the clock to help the traumatized refugees. Lee Minho was found unconscious in the ruins of the communication center, badly injured but alive. The 17-year-old had somehow survived the building's collapse, protected by a fallen beam that created a small air pocket. When he woke up aboard the hospital ship, the first thing he asked was whether his message had gotten through. It did, Admiral Choi told him personally. Your transmission reached us just in time. You saved everyone. On the 3rd day, the last transport lifted off from New Busan's scarred surface. Park Jin stood at the observation window, watching his former home shrink away below. The colony was dead, but its people lived on. That was what mattered. Admiral Choi received her first communication from Earth Command as the fleet prepared to leave the system. The message was predictably angry. She had abandoned her patrol route, risked valuable ships, and engaged in unauthorized combat operations. "Admiral, how do you respond to these charges?" asked Captain Park from the fire. Dragon Choi smiled grimly as she composed her reply. "Tell Earth Command that the frontier isn't as alone as they thought. Tell them that when humans call for help, Earth's finest will always answer. And tell them that next time they want to abandon our people, they'll have to go through me first." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying 400 saved lives and a message that would echo across human space. No one fights alone when Earth's defenders are watching.